This is the Debrief at Decision Tactical.
We are here at Decision Tactical in the Street and Dynasty before we're opening with the Justin Lane, Major of the U.S. Army. Thank you for your service. I'm so happy that you're here with us. I'd love for the audience to hear, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you got going on.
Awesome. I appreciate you having me. Certainly excited to be sitting down here and excited to have this kind of relationship with DTAC where I'm able to come and check the place out and contribute. As Vinny said, my name is Justin Lane. I'm a major in the United States Army. I'm an infantry officer. I'm serving in the functional area called simulation operations, which means I have a background with some operational experience in the infantry world, and I'm using that to help inform the way that the Army is using simulations to train soldiers moving into the future. And that kind of brings me here to Orlando, where I'm actually in graduate school now, studying modeling and simulations and learning about how those things can be used to help train and teach, which, is a natural synergy with DTAC and has given me the opportunity to come out here and interact with you guys.
It's crazy. Obviously, he's bored right now. Can't keep himself busy enough. I know that you, when you were younger, you went to military school as a young kid. I want to start from your childhood. Tell us a little bit about that. What was that experience like for you? So
I went to a military boarding school in Central Virginia for high school at a place called Fork Union Military Academy. Oh, wow. It's a great institution, Southern Baptist, very, traditional values kind of place. And the first time that I ever interacted in a military setting or put on a uniform, and my experience there was, it was very formative. It gave me a lot of discipline academically, learned quite a bit, and kind of put me on the path towards joining the military. I kind of made that decision while I was at Fork Union that was likely what I was going to do professionally for the rest of my life. And so finished up at Fork Union, went off to college at George Mason University in Northern Virginia, and commissioned from their ROTC program as a young infantry lieutenant in the U.S. Army.
Perfect. How do you think your classmates would describe you back then?
Oh man.
Yeah, let me hear it.
So I've always been reasonably outgoing.
Okay.
I played a lot of sports in high school. I was on the lacrosse team. I wrestled for a little bit, and I ran cross country and track. And I really enjoyed a lot of the military environment, the opportunity that it gave me to, learn early leadership lessons in life. And so I was put into cadet leadership positions. I was responsible for helping supervise my classmates and, move through school with them in that role. So I think there'd be some that would, remember the positions of leadership that I held during that time in my life. There'd be others that would, know me better and remember me a little bit goofy, a little bit outgoing, a little bit of a class clown.
Oh, wow. You a class clown.
Believe it or not, yes. And I think it only got worse, unfortunately, after high school as I went into college and had a little bit more freedom than I did at a military boarding school. I'm sure. Going to a big public university and had some fun years, had some wild years, learned a lot. Fortunately, learned enough that hopefully I don't repeat some of those things as an adult, right?
What do you bring from those young experiences into your career today?
I think the big one is leadership and empathy for others. So
got it.
Going through, some of those early lessons in high school, we were young. I was there from 13 to 18 yeyears old, basically.
Core years
for sure. It's an early time in your life, being away from home, not going home a whole lot. There's, you're young, you struggle with homesickness, and you're essentially leaving the house at a much younger age. So going through some of that, was essentially hardship or certainly a trying experience early in life. Gave me an appreciation for family, gave me appreciation for relationships. It gave me an appreciation for being able to use the support network of the people around me in those kind of trying times to get through whatever that obstacle may be. So I think in that regard, it gave me some resilience that would certainly be fortuitous, later in my professional career and then even later as a husband and a father.
Amazing. Thank you for that. Did you go start your career in the service directly after high school? Give us background.
There's a lot of ways to enter the military. I chose to pursue becoming a commissioned officer, and you can of course enlist, and I really wanted to enlist in the military right out of high school. Graduated in 2007. The global war on terror was raging. I was young and ignorant, frankly. And I was worried that I was going to miss the conflicts that my nation was engaged in. I watched 9/11 happen when I was in middle school, and I was up in the Northern Virginia area. It impacted my community with the attacks in Washington D.C. And so I felt called to go serve in that conflict through high school, and I wanted to enlist after high school. My parents, because they are wiser than me, encouraged me to pursue a commission as an officer. I had the grades to get into school. The Army, through the ROTC program, provided me the opportunity to get a scholarship so I could go through and get my undergraduate degree for free, and then give them some service on the back end. So I did go that route. And of course, the whole time I'm watching Iraq and Afghanistan and thinking like I'm going to miss my opportunity to go and serve in those conflicts, which again was a naive thought because those things kept raging for quite a bit.
It's crazy, the psychological side. That's where your head's going. Like, I want to get into the fire.
I think it's something about young boys. Like it's hard to explain, and for those that feel called to serve, I think people in that profession want to test themselves in the ultimate arena of the profession. So I think it's a natural thing, and unfortunately, it's not something that can be really tamped until they go and do it. But we need people that want to go serve, and we need people that are willing to do that stuff. And I'm glad that there's a lot of Americans out there that are willing to step up.
Seriously, you did get deployed. When was the first time you
Sure. So commissioned out of the ROTC program, became an infantry officer, and went through, there's a training pipeline associated with that. Part of that is going through the infantry officer basic course into the U.S. Army Ranger School. So I completed those things, went off to my first unit. And my first unit was in El Paso, Texas, out at Fort Bliss with the 1st Armored Division. I was there for about a year, for into 2012, most of 2013, and then we deployed to Afghanistan at the end of 2013. And I was overseas on my first deployment with them for most of 2014, got back that fall. And I think that time I was, 22 years old or something like that. Yeah. And it's wild because you're training for this thing for a really long time. Then as a young officer, I was a young lieutenant with very little experience. I had some institutional experience going through the courses that the Army expected me to. And then just like every other young lieutenant in the Army, I was put in the role of a platoon leader responsible for, 40 other soldiers.
It's crazy, man.
And so it's wild looking back because I know exactly how young I was. And I know that I was prepared by the Army to go and do that job. But even thinking about it now, the responsibility we put on young leaders in the service very early in their careers to go and lead in those environments.
So with that said, what advice would you give these young leaders out there? I know there's not much you could really give, but what could you say potentially if you were in those shoes today, knowing what you know now?
And one of the great things about the military, certainly the Army, is it has a very much a mentorship culture. So those of us who've been in the profession for a minute take advantage of the opportunity to help develop those that are more junior and still learning, as we all, obviously are still learning. But if there was one piece of advice, there's no magic bullet that I could give them that would, make them the uber officer. I would say character integrity is everything. And if your character and your integrity are locked in, the rest is going to fall into place, because high character, high integrity means you're going to do the job as it's expected to be done under all circumstances, regardless of who's watching. Character integrity means that you're going to have, the courage and the intestinal fortitude to make hard decisions when they're required of you. It means that you're going to keep yourself physically fit and you're going to have the discipline to do it. So I think, if you can get those things under control early in your career and really focus on being the best version of yourself you can, the rest is going to fall into place. But there's no trust your NCOs, get really fit, get great at shooting, learn the tactics and doctrine. Those are all expected. I don't think any of those are possible under the duress of what the job asks of us, unless your character and your integrity are locked in.
Well, for the short amount of time that I've known you, I feel like you still carry that with you today.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. I know you mentioned Afghanistan before, but where else have you?
So I've been in the military.
How many tours?
Sure. I've been in the Army for about 12 years. Wow. In that time, I went back to Afghanistan quite a bit. I went there 4 separate times, and then I did Iraq and Operation Inherent Resolve, Syria, that whole theater once.
Wow.
So 5 total. Some of those shorter, some of those longer, just depending on the unit. And the missions vary quite a bit, obviously, across each deployment. And all the experiences are very different from one another.
Ever Google yourself and surprised at what you find? I have. I did not like what I saw. All my information is out there. I regularly receive spam calls, weird text messages, even experience card fraud. We need better protection. How did I even get our info? Well, thanks to today's sponsor, Aura, I now know. Aura shows me which and how many data brokers are selling my information. These data brokers make a fortune selling my and your information. They also make it hard to get your information removed from these sites, but Aura solves that by automatically submitting opt-out requests on my behalf. This helps reduce the amount of spam I receive, and I feel much more secure knowing my personal information isn't as exposed. I promise you, you have information exposed right now. Just Google yourself and find out. Best case scenario, more spam. Worst case scenario, hackers and scammers are getting into your financial accounts. Do we want that? I don't think so. I value my privacy and I value yours. Go to aura.com/decisiontactical to start your 2-week free trial. The link is in the description. Go check it out. What is it like being a platoon leader? Like, you know, you're saying 40 men, that was young, but
it's
then I said,
fun, man.
It's fun.
It is
All right,
fun.
tell us the fun side.
You know, because I've been extraordinarily blessed to do a lot of different things in the Army. And I think, you know, you could say, like, what was your most fun job or your favorite job, or what was the most challenging or the most fulfilling? The answer to all of those are slightly different. The platoon leader position specifically is a blast. You're young, you know, you are about the same age, maybe a little bit older than most of your platoon. Your non-commissioned officers in the platoon are a little bit older than you are. They've got, you know, 6, 8, 10, 12, sometimes 15 years of experience up to the platoon sergeant level. So there's a variety of different skills and competencies and levels of experience within a platoon. And it's just, you know, as an officer, that's for most of us, unless you're in a you know, other branches or a special operations community or what have you. That's the smallest formation you'll ever lead. In the infantry is about 40 guys. And so that it's a very, very close, tight-knit group, almost like a family. It's a family with a very serious job to do. But the relationships are extremely tight, and you spend a ton of time in the field with those guys. And so it was a blast.
What part does your family play in all this? You were mentioning balance. We were speaking about balance before we started all this. Yeah. Tell us a little bit about like family, work-life balance, all things like that.
I don't think it's tough. Military life is tough on the soldier for sure. It's tougher on the family, in my opinion. I have a lot of hobbies as well that take up a lot of my time. I have a tendency to be very passionate about everything I touch, and if I invest the time in it, I tend to go all in. And balance is a challenge. I have 2 children who are perfect. I married the perfect woman, and I am extraordinarily blessed. Early in my career, I was on a deployment with an Army Special Mission Unit, and I was talking to one of their leaders. He has, you know, married kids, similar kind of background. And I was like, hey, sir, like, how do you do it? Like, how do you balance it at your level? He's a couple, you know, rungs up on the totem pole for me, someone I admire greatly. And his answer was, there is no balance. and I've heard that before. And I think it's true. I don't think that we'll ever... People who are passionate about what they do and pour everything into it will never find a balance. You'll find times when you can have more balance than others. For me, I am very deliberate about family time, and I protect it. And I'm also fully aware that, you know, I still have years left in my career, and there's going to be years potentially when I am not home. And there will be times when I am. And so I know now, and I value the time that I have home more now, having done this for a little bit, than I did in the past. And so while I might not have all the time I want with the people that I love, the time that I do have, I know to take advantage of in a meaningful way, whereas in the past, when I was younger, maybe I didn't.
Thank you. That was amazing. Yeah, I'm going to use that for myself as well. How did those experiences over there overseas, and even being a leader over there, help you with your training now on a personal and professional level?
I think... the way, you know, the Army answer is that we are developed as a function of our experiences, our institutional development, and our self-development. So, you know, being a platoon leader or a company commander or an XO, those are all jobs that we do in the military, and they give us an experiential background for, you know, the profession. They give us that experiential base. And I think, you know, of all the ways that I've developed, be it, institutions, go into college, go into Army courses, experiential and self-development. Like those experiences are so fundamental to everything that we do. And they're so important in informing how we lead later. So the things I did well, the things I did poorly, those are things I reflect on. And the mistakes that I made, like those are things that influence the way that I think and that I train now. And I think that particularly because you're interacting with a wide range of people and a great number of people, if you are getting the most out of that experience, it helps to further develop your empathy, because I've seen a lot of people struggling with a lot of different stuff. I've seen guys succeed. I've seen them fail. I've seen them make mistakes. And your job through all of that, the variety of challenges you face as a leader in those circumstances is to continue to grow the organization and make the organization perform in that environment. So I learned how to accomplish the mission and how to take care of my people at the same time. And I think that's kind of shaped my outlook on interpersonal interactions, leadership, and in the way that I think about training now.
I like that you lean the empathy direction, because it is really important to growing any team.
Yeah, absolutely.
Being able to understand people on that type of level. What do you do in your career now?
So, the time in the infantry was incredible, formative, important. It was tough too. I was gone a lot, spent a lot of time away, and reached a point in my career where I was at kind of a crossroads, whether or not I wanted to choose to continue pursuing down, the career path of an infantry officer and go on to lead larger organizations, or I had the opportunity to move into a more technical branch. And so I chose, after company command, to go into a functional area called simulation operations. And a functional area is, you're basically branching off from your basic career path and choosing to use that experience that you had in your basic branch to inform how the Army trains and conducts readiness operations, trains their soldiers, and uses simulations to advance the force. I've always been a huge tech nerd. I've always loved games. I've always, that's always been a part of my life. And so it seemed like a very natural intersection between where I had developed some professional expertise in fire maneuver as an infantry guy, and I would be able to synergize with my hobbies and my passions for technology. So I made that transition over to that functional area, which brought me down here to Orlando, to the University of Central Florida, where I'm studying it at the graduate level and learning that it's even more challenging, and there's so much more to it and so much more depth to it than I could have even imagined.
I'm sure. I'm getting a little bit of insight into it now, fortunately, but with being a nerd and a gamer and all your sim testing and stuff like that, you decided to start a YouTube channel a while back that became pretty successful.
Yeah.
Tell us about the channel and the synergy that's come out of it for you both on a personal and professional level.
Sure. So the channel is called Controlled Pairs Gaming, and like the YouTube stuff has always been a hobby. It was like initially a creative outlet where I was playing these games and I just wanted to share clips with my friends. And, I initially was just sharing some fun clips. Later on, realized that, hey, some people are enjoying watching this. And so over time, I started to put some more effort into it, used it as a creative outlet to kind of showcase where my passions were for gaming, and how those intersected professionally. So I'd find, serious strategy and military games and use the game as a vehicle to describe how a military mind might dissect a tactical problem. And so I would explain it in that way, and the audience found a lot of value in it. And it's something that, I don't walk around work saying, hey, like, go check out my YouTube channel. Yeah. But funnily enough, I've had times where like a young officer would approach me and be like, hey, like, I recognize your voice, or I saw your YouTube channel.
No way.
And at first it's like, oh my gosh, like I'm taken aback or even embarrassed by it, because no one wants to put themselves out there like that. It takes some courage in its own right to even pursue things like that. But I've had like a young officer, a young NCO be like, hey, I saw that. And my friends and I are watching this playlist and discussing how it applies to us professionally. And so it's equal parts entertainment and professional development. And, it's been rewarding and fun for sure.
That's amazing that people could look at it on the educational side as well. How do you actually use these experiences, like through the gaming, to train at home?
That's a fantastic question. So I, have a background obviously in the infantry, and we didn't go through everything that I did in the infantry. Part of it was, I did 2 different stints for 3 or 4 years apiece, or 2 or 3 years apiece in the 75th Ranger Regiment. It's a special operations organization, and a place that I call home. I love that place, love the unit, love those the Rangers that work there. And in the Ranger Regiment, I learned a lot about a lot about a lot of things,
Sure.
standards, leadership, the whole deal. But one of the things that always took me and impressed me there was the competency of the individual ranger with their hands and with their equipment. They can shoot, they can move, they're fit, and they are true experts in their craft, more so than I've seen displayed by any other group of humans that I've encountered. And so I developed a passion for my own personal improvement in that regard. So I started shooting a lot on my own. I started, competing as an amateur in pistol competitions and shooting with the U.S. Practical Shooting Association, and started taking my own fitness a lot more seriously. Wow. And I quickly found that there were limits to what you can learn at work and work alone, particularly with marksmanship. And so through there, I started looking for other training aids. Like, you can't go to the range every single weekend. So what are some of the other solutions? I started experimenting with virtual reality, and I started using virtual reality pistol trainers as a supplement to my own dry fire. And nice. And so now these days I still try to get to the range minimum of once or twice a month. I train in VR, several times a week for sure, sometimes more than that. I still do my own dry fire. So I think the passion isn't necessarily for the tech. It is for whatever vehicle will maximize human performance. And I think my own OCD obsession is, how good can I be? What is excellence for me? And if I may never be a grandmaster professional competitive shooter, but I have a limit or a ceiling somewhere, and I haven't hit that yet. So I'm looking for every tool and using that tool in the best way that I can use it to maximize my performance. And simulation is certainly a part of that.
Speaking of simulation, we're in the street dining scenario of Decision Tactical. What do you think of this facility and what it has to offer in regards to both simulation and the actual training side of it?
Decision Tactical is a special place. And so the short version is, I needed a place to study, run a study for my thesis. And so I had a bunch of different ideas, and I didn't know that Decision Tactical existed. And I saw a social media post last fall, and it was for Decision Tactical, and I saw, immersive law enforcement training facility. And I was like, no way. Where is this? Sanford? Okay, that's, 30 minutes from the house. Wow. And so I reached out to Decision Tactical shortly thereafter, got the opportunity to come and do a walkthrough. This was before the facility was open. There were still contractors everywhere. Everything was framed out. A couple of the scenarios were done. I went through the scenarios that were ready at that time, the house scenario specifically, and I went through blind with no prep. I just watched the video and sent it. And I came out and I realized my heart is pounding. I was fully immersed in the experience. I treated it like it was real. And because of what I understand of training and how important it is to train, scenario-based training under conditions that replicate the operational environment, is how you prepare, martial professions, those of us who work and operate in dangerous environments, armed, law enforcement, cops, security, whatever the case may be. Those environments that replicate the natural environment is where you see the mistakes come out. It's where you see the cracks come out. A lot of folks can go to the range and, stand at a static range and just drill, A-zone hits on a silhouette at 10 or 25 yards all day long. As soon as you start adding the dynamic nature of multiple stimulus and a really realistic environment, people trying to harm you, and that whole deal, that's where the real value comes out. So I think DTAC is interesting because it provides that experience to law enforcement. It allows civilians to come and check it out so that they have a little bit of, here's the recurring theme, empathy for what law enforcement experience. And it bridges the divides between those two communities. And it's just a very powerful training vehicle for the community and for law enforcement. And hopefully, we see places like this and continue to be adopted and used.
Nice. Well, for you to say that means a lot. We're happy that you're here and being able to use a facility in that way. We're doing an event here on July 5th called Batt All the Branches. Yeah. How do you feel about that, knowing that we're doing this event? It's a competition between all the branches, and where it's exclusively for veterans and the family of veterans to hang out on the 5th of July. I think it's going to be really fun. It's been fun to see the community that DTAC's already built, local businesses, veterans, police organizations, civilians, hobbyists, whatever the case may be. Everyone seems to have found their corner or their own little slice of community at DTAC. I think the outreach to law enforcement agencies and to veterans and to all these benevolent organizations that DTAC has already done is indicative of what you guys value. And I think doing things for veterans like this competition is a perfect way to show that and to bring veterans in. So it'll be fun. I hope that we have a lot of folks who haven't experienced DTAC before that come out
and check it out.
Likely.
I hope that they're able to build, have some fellowship and build some community and friends with other veterans in the area that maybe they haven't met before.
Even if there's just one, I think it's still already worth it. You know?
That's a win. That's a win. But so I'll be here for sure. It'll be a good time. I'm excited to see it.
Couple last questions. Do you have any advice for civilians in general?
Advice for civilians regarding what?
Training, security, responsibility. I don't know, but however you deem that.
Yeah. Okay. I think civilians should have the ability to protect themselves. Okay. Period. Plain and simple. Help is only a minute away when you don't have a minute to spare is the old adage. The degree to which you take that seriously could have profound impacts on your life. It doesn't mean you need to live your life paranoid. It doesn't mean there's someone trying to hurt you around every corner. And I would argue that you are significantly less paranoid and more confident and more free when you have the confidence in your own ability to defend yourself. And so I would encourage civilians to take their own personal safety seriously. If that means learning how to operate a firearm or carrying a concealed weapon in a responsible way, I think that is an appropriate measure to take. And there's scales to it. And, we see folks that are very into that environment going, and taking tactical classes, learning rifle and carbine marksmanship, fire maneuver, all that sort of stuff. And I don't think every civilian needs to take it to that degree unless that's where their passion is. But I do think it's important, particularly in the United States, when we have some of the most amount of guns per capita in the world, and that will not change, that civilians are at least comfortable operating a firearm, know how to do it safely, and have the ability to use one to defend themselves and their family and their community in, God forbid, should a crisis that requires that ever arrive in their life.
I'm going to switch it up a little bit to like kind of speed round type of thing.
Sure. Oh, God. Here we go.
He's like, okay, nah, that's all right. Do you personally have a favorite video game? That's a tough one for you.
You said speed round. I'm going to say Door Kickers 2 Task Force North.
Okay, no idea, but
I know. They'll look it up, and they'll see why I like it. It makes sense.
Is there any type of content that you personally watch for like a guilty pleasure type of?
Oh man, it's firearm stuff all day. Nice. I don't have the money to buy every firearm that I want or go train as much as I want, so I live vicariously for those who do. Cool.
Do you have a favorite weapon that you use regularly?
Yeah. So I have a Daniel Defense Mark 18, and it's excellent.
Nice.
We'll leave it there.
Do you have a favorite weapon that you like? Favorite to teach, like a
handgun for sure. Okay, yeah, cool. Like striker fired pistol all day long because it is the best platform to teach fundamentals on. It is hard to shoot pistols. If you're a great shooter, it's hard to shoot pistols. If your fundamentals aren't locked in, it shows. But it's also very easy to diagnose what a shooter's doing wrong. If you can get someone shooting pistol at a very high level, it's very, very easy to make the transition over to rifle and carbine.
Gotcha. Thank you. Favorite that. Like your tactical gear, like what's like your favorite accessory?
Favorite tactical gear accessory. So I don't have a favorite necessarily. Yeah, I would say a gun belt. A lot of folks will go out and they'll buy a handgun, but they won't put night sights on it. They won't put a light on it. They won't have a holster or a concealed carry holster. Once you have a firearm that has a light, so it works. It's only light 50% of the time each year, so it's helpful to be able to shoot whenever it's not light outside to save your own life. So put a light on your gun. Make sure you have sights that work during daytime or nighttime, whether it's a red dot or fiber optic irons. Make sure you have a good holster and a way of securely storing it, particularly if there's children in your home. Once you have all those fundamentals knocked out, a gun belt is critical. Carries an extra couple magazine, gives you an outside the waistband holster, and it is perfect for going to the range and doing 100, 250 rounds at a time, once a month or as often as you can get out there.
Understood. A great answer. The last one. Favorite military movie?
Oh man, Black Hawk Down.
Nice. All right. Answer. Yeah. Well, one, thank you, and two, how can people connect with you or view your stuff and let us know what's going on next in the world of Justin?
Oh, man. So across all socials for my nerd content, for those who want to subject themselves to that, you can find me at Controlled Pairs across all platforms, essentially. And that's also probably the best way to get in touch with me. As far as what's coming up next, I'm getting into competition shooting much more seriously, trying to make more matches happen than I have in the past. And right now, particularly over on Instagram, I'm focusing a lot on training. So handgun training, marksmanship, and trying to take kind of the audience through that journey and see my own improvement over time and and it gives me a vehicle to kind of hold myself accountable. So if they want to follow along on that, that'll be great.
There you go. All right. Appreciate everything, man. Thanks
Appreciate
so
you,
much.
brother. Yeah, it's a good time.
Likewise, for real.